The Harpers by the Sea of Glass. We are unwilling to drop the curtain on this dark scene. Therefore, we turn, before leaving this grand apocalyptic history, to another of its visions. While the scenes of destruction we have described are going forward, another company is seen occupying a place of safety and singing songs of victory. Chapter 15, verse 3, quote, "And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having harps of God," unquote. This vision synchronizes with that of the 7 vials. For these white-robed harpers by the glassy sea are seen by John immediately after the emergence from the temple of the 7 angels with the 7 last plagues. We are to conceive of the song of the harpers as commencing when the vials began to be poured out, and going on during all the period of the vials, so that its melody would be heard during the pauses of the storm, if not also at times mingling with its thunders. They are described as they who had gotten the victory over the beast, which marks them out as the Protestant remnant, who, having escaped the pollutions of popery, are now preserved by God from its plagues. They stand on or by a sea of glass, having the harps of God. This brings vividly before us those glorious transactions from which the Red Sea was once the scene. I'm going to read that again since I stumbled on that word. This brings vividly before us those glorious transactions of which the Red Sea was once the scene. Guided by the pillar of fire, the tribes had passed safely through its depths, and standing on its brink, the vast assembly burst out as one man into a triumphal hymn, which swelled along the shores of the gulf and rose loud above the thunder of the surge that overwhelmed Pharaoh and his host. It is from this scene that the symbol before us is borrowed, and it tells us that it is another such deliverance that awaits the church, and another such catastrophe that shall overwhelm her foes. If, as some believe, and is exceedingly probable, there was spread out before John a miniature of the Roman earth all the time these visions were going forward, then it is impossible for the apostle may have seen the very locality the harpers were to occupy. I'm going to read that again. If as some believe, and as is exceedingly probable, there was spread out before John a miniature of the Roman earth all the time these visions were going forward, then it is possible that the apostle may have seen the very locality of the harpers were to occupy. Taking this vision in connection with the fall of the 10th part of the city at the Reformation. Taking this vision in connection with the fall of the 10th part of the city at the Reformation Mr. Eliot points pretty distinctly to Britain as the spot in question and the, quote, glassy sea as the narrow channel which separates the Popish continent from the Isle of Protestantism. But though British Protestants doubtless form the main division in this army of Harpers, we must not exclude others. In all the Popish countries, there are little companies of Protestants whom are disposed, we think, on good ground to rank among those Harpers, or these Harpers. The calamities of the sea, for its surface is of glassy smoothness, is a general figure denoting their safety and tranquility. But the sea is mingled with fire, the symbol of judgment, implying that though protected wonderfully by the providence of God, awful calamities should prevail around them. Indeed, when we reflect on what is passing at this hour, we are almost tempted to think, with Mr. Eliot, that a particular locality is denoted by the symbol, and that locality is Britain. When we contrast our own tranquility with the alarm, turmoil, and convulsion into which the Popish earth has been thrown, those whose inhabitants have literally no rest day nor night, the majestic repose of Britain has all the moral effect of a noble hymn sung to God, who is thus separating, quote, between the precious and the vile, unquote, and bearing testimony before the world to the value of his truth. Quote, and they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, unquote. As the tribes halted on the shore of the Red Sea and sang the song of Moses, so the New Testament tribes, or the New Covenant tribes, when mystic Egypt shall be destroyed, at the same time that they look back on ancient songs and will sing those of the new dispensation, celebrating the power and faithfulness of Moses, who had led them through the sea, even the Lamb. The leading note of their song is given, great and marvelous are thy works. That's a quote. Great and marvelous are thy works, the Lord God Almighty. Unquote. Such is the first ascription. When the mystery of providence shall be finished in the destruction of Antichrist, and the church shall view the beginning in the light of the end, the obscurity and apparent confusion and contradiction that now appear to mar the scheme will be rolled away, and she will be left in amazement at the grandeur of the work and the power of the workman, quote, great and marvelous, unquote. She shall see the one to be, and the other she will acknowledge to be indeed the, quote, Lord God Almighty, unquote. Quote, just and true, unquote, continues these Harpers. Quote, they are thy ways, thou King of saints, unquote. A grand discovery of moral principles awaits the world in this catastrophe. It is to form the last and crowning step in the long demonstration of the eternal rectitude of God's procedure. And when this step shall have been accomplished, the completeness of the whole proof will be clearly seen, and its irresistible force universally acknowledged. Quote, just and true, unquote, shall the church say with one voice, quote, are thy ways, thou King of saints, unquote. Not the church only, but the nations generally shall be deeply impressed with a sense of the justice and truth of God. Accordingly, the song of the Harpers concludes with an anticipation of the immediate approach of a better dispensation. Quote, who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name? For thou only art holy. For all nations shall come and worship before thee. For thy judgments are made manifest, the grand principles which enter into the right constitution and the proper government of human society being demonstrated in these awful scenes. Taken in connection with all that went before since the rise of popery and the world being now put fully in possession of them, we have reason to think they will never again be lost. We cannot conceive of the knowledge of the 6 primary mechanical powers being lost. The mechanist and the artisan will proceed on these principles till the end of time. The law of gravitation and other fundamental laws of science, being now fully established, will continue through all time to form the base of all reasonings and discoveries of philosophy. Why should not moral truth, if once fully discovered and clearly demonstrated, be retained by the help of the divine Spirit with equal permanency? The grand fundamental laws of moral and religious truth, through the first importance, have been the last to be discovered, nor till the awful scenes of the 7th vial shall have been completed will these great principles be fully evolved and the world generally brought to the knowledge of them. But having come into the full possession of them by painful experience, we have reason to think they will not again be lost, but will continue henceforward to mold the character and regulate the actings of society, both in its corporate capacity and in its individual members. The reign of these principles will constitute the millennium. And that is the end of the 7th vial. On page 391. And I will put this video out as a reflection for a study on the actual second reading of the book. Hope to see you then. Bye-bye.